When it comes to being social, is it okay not to be outgoing all the time? Some see quietness as a weakness, but it's absurd when you really think about it. Let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk because depending on the circumstances, even the most confident, outgoing person can be a bit shy. Questioning these self defeating narratives rather than blindly accepting them enables us to stand more comfortably in our own skin. How you liking today's podcast so far? Wait, with today's guest, we're going deeper.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
Today's guest, Michael Thompson, is a career coach, lecturer at EAE Business School in Barcelona, Spain, and strategic communication advisor to top business leaders worldwide. Growing up, his stutter and social anxiety kept him from pursuing his goals, but by turning his supposed weakness into his greatest strengths, he developed a system of principles to help people express themselves more confidently and build meaningful relationships without sacrificing their nature. His work has appeared in numerous publications, including Fast Company, Insider, Forbes, Inc., MSN, and Apple News. His new book is Shy by Design, 12 Timeless Principles to Quietly Stand Out, came out July 2024. Happy to have you with us and welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks for having me on today, Rob. I'm really excited to be here, man.
That's a pleasure. And we're getting Michael from Barcelona, Spain today. So it's 10 o'clock there, but we promise we keep him up. So let's see how we do. Let's dive right in. You know, I'm fascinated by your story because you grew up shy, had a stutter, brought on that social anxiety, and it began to get kind of in the way of your hopes and dreams. But while some people avoid these, you focused on their strengths and chose the opposite path, pursuing a career in sales. And by doing that, you stepped into the person you didn't know you were capable of becoming. I'd love for you, and let's see how nimble you are. I want you to take us through that journey a little bit, but in a nimble fashion.
So in a nimble fashion, I love it. So when I was 23, I grew up with a military family. Like my dad was a great guy, but surrounded by Army barracks, tall, shoulders back, head high. If you're going to shake somebody's hand, try to break it kind of mentality. And I was just the opposite of that.
Right.
So I had like a sensitive demeanor. I was creative, shy, like I stuttered. So I wasn't out in front. And I took a job in sales at age 23. I still don't know exactly what I was thinking, but I saw all of my buddies were going out and making something of their lives. And I was bar backing at the time in Baltimore. And I thought of sales as like my Everest. So I found a place that was crazy enough to hire me. And I hung up on a lot of people actually in the beginning, just because I stuttered. Today, I still stutter on M's, and my name's Michael, and I was selling mortgages. So I would hang up, like it's like I'd start talking, and then I'd be like, and I'd click it. But after the 90-day mark, it's like I felt a shift, and I saw in the office, like you can probably relate to this. It's not just charismatic, confident people who excel in sales. There's a lot of different personality types. A lot of different clients appreciate more quiet, the listener types. So my eyes opened that maybe I am good enough. And those, like a couple of things happened like in the first year that my eyes opened to the fact that, yeah, I'm doing all right.
I think you were smart to do that. You know, as a basketball player, you know, I coached a lot of teams. You know, everybody can go to their right, but when you develop that left hand, when you develop the other side, you really become a great player. So I just applaud the fact that you dove into sales, if for no other reason, not even a career in sales, just to develop that left hand a little bit, to develop that other side, because in sales in particular, if you're going to be a manager, if you're going to be a leader, a lot of times you need those skills of persuasion. And so I just think that was a smart move. And you're still in sales to this day?
I'm in communication now. So I teach at a university in Barcelona, and I help
Right.
executives write books with their footprints online, strategy stuff. So I'm in sales, like we're all in sales, like I
There
got to
you
get
go.
clients. I live in a small town in Spain, about an hour north of Barcelona on the coast. If I want money, I need to go get it.
Well, good for you because you were walking into a trap there if you didn't say we were in sales. Of course you are. And I think some of the greatest professors, teachers, uh, lecturers have that persuasion, have that sometimes they're unconscious competence, but they have that ability to not just want to dispense information, but to really care and want that student, want that other
Yeah,
person to grab it.
that's the thing. I want people to do well and to raise their own confidence. Like, and it's the thing. If you can learn sales, it's like it's human behavior principles. It's not
Yeah.
selling. It's not like manipulating. It's more just learning how humans operate, paying attention. And like you said earlier, is the thing. If like what I'm offering isn't for someone, it's like it's not my job to push it on everyone. No is a gift. Like it's the thing, the people who don't know, the undecided, that gets a little tricky in sales. But no is like, all right, great, pick up the phone again.
Right.
But it teaches you life skills like working as a bartender or something, like these social skills, like how to get people, how to inspire them to take action. I think everyone should kind of have person a face-to-face sales job for 6 months of their life. Blow it for 6 months,
Yeah.
but you're going to learn a lot about yourself in the world.
That's interesting. I all of a sudden you sparked an idea. I remember when I went to school, that you could take whatever you wanted, but you needed English 101, you needed math 101. There
Yeah,
were certain courses that were required. I wish, and maybe we won't call it sales, but I'm sure as heck not going to call it soft skills. I call them performance skills.
yeah,
I wish there was a requirement for performance skills, skills that really worked on just helping us communicate with others, create trust, listen, know what an open probe is. I don't care if you're going into sales, but I think that's every bit as important as my math 101.
I was speaking to a guy yesterday on LinkedIn, like, and he was talking about how bartending impacted his life at it. Like he was
Hmm.
21, 22. Like, and I had said something about how my friends and I here talk about how like bartending or customer service, some job in front of people should be the new mandatory service for the military, where it's like it's so easy to stay home now, like, or just work online, or just, but working with students, a lot of their fears are with interviews, with presentations, with doing a reach out email, going for a coffee. Their anxiety is really high from it, just because like the world has changed.
Right.
And you got to force yourself to get in front of people, and
Yeah.
we've never had that before. Like we've always been around people.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Last night I gave a, keynote presentation to a group of people who were in career transition, about 50 of them.
Mm.
And I got to tell you, and I've asked before because I've spoken in meetings like this. There isn't a person out of that 50 that was in that room because their hard skills failed them. Okay. They're in there because their performance skills failed them. They didn't know
Yeah,
how to be part of a team or create trust. A lot of the things that you learn when you learn how to sell.
yeah.
And again, I'm now going to go on a crusade. You've given me a push. Thank you, Michael. I kind of want to revisit that. I think it's going to need to be writing some articles on that one. So good push for you. But let's jump back to your book. Rob occasionally gets distracted. Uh, so the book, I find it really interesting, but I particularly for this book, I'd be shocked if there wasn't some sort of story behind the inspiration of the book. I refuse to believe you were walking down the sidewalk and you got hit in the head by a coconut. So what is
No,
there a story behind it that said, I gotta write this?
now's the time. Yeah. So I started writing. So I still stutter today. And especially if I'm tired and I have young kids, if I have to get up in front of groups for 4 hour lecturing slots, like it's like I have moments. Yeah. But I started writing when I was 38. So about 6, 7 years ago. And um, I was in sales communication for 15 years. And I started to write and I was like, oh, wow, this is a lot more comfortable for me. Like I'm good at this, like sales, I was good, but with writing, like it's how I communicate best. And I started to write with about the challenges I had faced growing up stuttering from school, to work to learning how to give presentations, just like my skill set. And they took off really quickly. So I had an agent reach out maybe 2 years in to writing. I had gotten into Fast Company in these places, and she asked me to write a book probably around 2020. And I was like, yes, of course I'll do it. And I sat down to write, and I was like, I got nothing. The next day, the same. And I was earning money just from writing. Like, and I was like, I'm like earning more than most authors do just from like weekly articles. So, but then COVID hit. My dad got cancer. I kind of felt like writing the book felt like like inconsequential at the moment. And my dad was like, "Hey, I'm going to write a memoir for you and your brothers, and you keep at it. Like, write this book." And then my two kids both are shy and stutter. So it's just kind of, I want a book where they can see that they're already cool, and kind of online articles. I love writing online. It's how I started, but they're kind of temporary. And with the book, it's the physical thing that the kids can feel. So it's very much like, there's the thing of like, you should write a book to give more talks and to travel. And I don't have those motivations. It's more just like my first mountain book. And I work with students who struggle with confidence, communication. And it's just kind of a cheesy way to say it, like my gift like to the world in a way. Yeah. And for me, like writing it and going through all of the things I've been through, it's like I'm stuttering less and less every day from writing the book, from writing online, just because I'm more confident in my own skin. Like, hey, I survived some things that weren't always easy. So that's a meandering question, but my why is family, legacy, and doing something hard.
Yeah. Do you get inspiration from, and we're not going to get political, but we have a president currently who stutters, and who's battled a stutter, who talks about his stuttering. Was that something that was kind of uplifting for you? And again, I don't care if he was the president or not. We're not getting into that part of it, but just the fact that somebody on that kind of stage was willing to talk about it.
Yeah. Actually, the book kind of came about because I wrote an article in 2020 about being a leader who stutters, like, and how it's made me a stronger leader. And I was asked by Business Insider editors, once the election was coming, for me to write something about my experience as somebody who stutters, like, and what's like some of the strengths that had helped me uncover. So it played a role in the book. There's a story in like the book that was the basis of the article, and vice versa. So I've thought about that a lot, and I think it's really cool he gets out there in front. It's like, it's always good, but everybody kind of has a story of a challenge, a personal struggle.
Right.
And with mine, it's maybe you can hear it. Like, I look like blonde hair, blue eyed, typical American guy, but you can hear, if you spend an hour, that I've had some things that I've had to go through. And with Biden, I just love the fact he just owns it.
Yeah. That's what I mean. He talks about it, owns it. It's incredible. There's a saying, I believe it's biblical, but I really don't know for sure. But somebody said, I think that's in the Bible. We all walk with a limp, and we all have our thing. And quite frankly, we don't have it necessarily at 5 or 6. You got yours real early. You got yours. You had to man up a little bit earlier than most of us, but at some point, we all have our limp. Yeah. I speak to you as a bald man. I wasn't by plan, and I will tell you, I would go, oh boy, I'm losing my hair. How great! And yet, I think in a way it helped because it made me a little bit more empathetic to others.
Yeah,
and then realize that everybody has something, and we don't always talk about it, and it isn't always up front. But you ever meet somebody who doesn't have a limp, there one or two things is going on. They're either not telling you the truth, or they have no ability whatsoever to have empathy for another human being.
Yeah, and be vulnerable in these things. I had just for the record, I couldn't imagine you looking better with hair. Like, you have a really great look, like it's the perfect facial hair, everything. Like, it could be worse, But
yeah.
I started out, so I got promoted to the management team maybe 18 months into my job in sales, And the first day, one of the guys on my team who he was about 40. I sat right next to him since day one. He refused to be on my team because of my stutter. And he said that like in front of the whole team on the first meeting. And I flipped out on him. And I left like I drove to Panera Bread and I sat in the parking lot. It's like, what the hell am I going to do? And I went back into the office and the CEO had pulled me aside like, hey, like I didn't promote you out of pity. Like I want people to see, first off, you're an inspiration. You don't use any excuses. You show up to work every day and you work and you have a knack for teaching people. And I got with my team and I couldn't hide. Like I was in a place of forced vulnerability where I couldn't hide it, right? Like everyone knew that I wasn't the normal leader. And that made it really, like I became really approachable for people on the team. Like if they had a problem, I wasn't going to judge them. And so I think a quality of leadership that doesn't receive enough spotlight is how to put people at ease and have them like reveal themselves to you. Like I define that as the art of conversation is like setting the conditions for people to reveal themselves to you. So I was actually like looking about it, like as soon as I started to own it, like it became a thing that pulled people to me. So I didn't have to push myself on anyone. It was just like, hey, like I'm not going to judge you here. Just like tell me what's going on, like, and we can work together and try and figure out a solution for it. So it's really a blessing. Maybe not for massive teams. I'm not going to be the guy who's out in front, rah speeches, but in like new world teams where it's collaboration, creativity, openness, being agile with a 10-person team, a 20-person team, I've seen it as a massive strength.
Yeah.
Just took a long time to learn. Like it took 25 years of crying in the bathrooms of school to get it, you know?
Sorry about that part of it, but I'm actually not surprised because you bring something different to the table. You know, sometimes for many salespeople who, you know, we talk and we walk and we're all extroverts. And in a sense, we're coming out of what I refer to as a sea of sameness.
Yeah.
You got bring something different. And I'll give you a fast case story. I'll do it in less than 45 seconds. You probably never heard of this gentleman. His name was Ben Feldman, greatest salesman I ever met. I was 22 years old when I met him. But with 250,000 insurance agents in the United States, he was number one. Number two sold 50 million. Number three sold 49 million. A bunch of people at 48 million. This guy, Ben Feldman, sold $252 million of insurance. Okay. And you look statistically, how exactly can you do that with numbers like that? I got to meet him. Michael, he was about 5'3". He was, I'll just say, kind of large. He had hair like Larry on the Three Stooges, and he spoke with a distinct pronounced lisp. And yet he owned it. And he didn't come from that sea of sameness. And I think that it made him focus on other things. You know, he wasn't trying to out, slick you.
Yeah,
He just went in and you knew one thing, this is an authentic human being. And I think that's who you are in a sense. I think that given your background, you bring this authenticity to you that many of us would love to have. So you turn that weakness into a strength.
Yeah, it's funny. Like it reminded me of a story. Like when my third month of sales, we went to a sales conference and it was like a Zig Ziglar type. I wish I would remember his name. It wasn't Brian Tracy, but it was one of those guys. And
Tom Hawkins, maybe?
Like I couldn't tell it. Like it
okay,
was
all right. I won't
25
guess.
years ago, and I didn't care to be at the conference, so I wasn't paying that much attention. Except everyone was whoa, yeah. And he was gathering up his stuff at the end of his keynote, like, and he said, "Oh, one last thing, and if you can't get people to talk to you, start stuttering because they'll see you as a human being and not a salesperson."
Wow.
And it was like a lot, like my team erupted. Like I was like, holy shit. Like I can stutter. Like, so going back into the office, seeing like other shy introverted people do well. Plus this, I started to question the stories that I've been telling myself. And it was just one of those moments, like, how could that happen? Like I would have never heard that if I hadn't taken the jump.
Wow.
But what a message for me to, like, that's the only thing I remember for probably that whole year. Like, was that sentence, you know?
I'd never
Like it did
forget
a
that.
world of good, you know. But clients had said the same thing, like, "Oh, you're not some fast talker trying to snowball me. Seems like you care." Like I had to overcompensate and develop different skill set. So I think Tim Ferriss said with Michael Phelps, he's like, he may not be the best person to teach you how to swim. The guy who came in sixth, who doesn't look like he should be in the same pool, may very well be the person who can teach you the most, just because they've had to do things a little bit differently.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's a very common scenario for if you look at in professional sports, the managers and the coaches, if they played at all, they never got out of double A baseball,
Yeah.
but they kicked, scratched, clawed, bled, and fought their way to learn what they were doing. They weren't unconsciously competent. They were very
Yeah.
consciously competent. Phelps is a great example. I'm making this up, but I've got a cousin who held a couple of state records in swimming. So he really knows swimmers. He said that guy's got feet that are like
Yeah.
fins.
He's
Okay.
a
He's a
torso. He's like
big,
a shark. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got some gifts that last time I looked in the mirror, I don't quite have.
Yeah.
But so I'm not saying he didn't work harder than almost any other human being, but he had a bit of a head start.
I
Okay.
have that in the book, the exact description. His torso is longer than the average person. His legs are shorter, so it's like a shark in cartoons.
Wow.
Like it's like, and it's funny how he's like he's kind of born a natural.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
not to say he didn't work hard,
Right. Right.
but the guy who's 30 pounds overweight, who looks like the guy like with the Larry hair on the sides, who puts on a cap
Yeah.
and does pretty well, he may be able to teach you a thing or two.
The book is called Shy by Design 12 Timeless Principles to Quietly Stand Out. I'm assuming we're on Amazon. Is there an audiobook for this?
There is not yet. I'm a first time author. Hopefully it's coming. It's getting translated into Korean soon, hopefully Portuguese. So like this, like it's starting to roll a little bit.
Good,
Um,
good. When it goes to audio, you going to read it or are you going to have somebody else do it?
People have asked me of that question a lot. And maybe it's just you, it made me really comfortable, but generally recording, like I record myself a lot just to practice. But the thing is sitting in front of a camera and a screen for hours on end with it, I don't know.
Well, let me give
A
you a
lot of people
push.
have said it'd be nice.
Let me
Yeah.
give you a push. I'm hoping you do.
All right.
And I'm hoping you do because of the conversation we're having, because I would want people, if I got your book, I'd want to hear you, and I'd want to hear you stutter every now and then to remind me
Yeah.
that this is a human being. So I'm going to encourage you. You can do it any way you want, but I think your readers and followers would appreciate hearing the real you
Yeah.
read that book.
It is tough if I have some sentences where it is stuttering, so some voice actor doing it wouldn't feel very authentic to me.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. All right, let's
Maybe
talk
I'll
about
start a kick.
yeah.
Maybe I'll start a Kickstarter to get back in the green after the last 6 months.
Yeah. Well, your
But
publisher should be pitching in on this, but
yeah, I'm joking. But
particularly if this book is going towards salespeople, a lot of them don't read as much. They'll listen
yeah,
to a
I agree.
podcast.
Younger
They'll
people too. Yes, career
Yeah.
advice for
So
younger
I'm giving you
people.
a nudge there. All right.
I appreciate that.
Let's make, you know what? Everybody's listening. Grab that book on Amazon, put a review on it, and let's get some momentum so we can get this into an audio
I'll
book.
do it only if you are the other. Like if it's a dialogue, you have to
Call
be
me up.
the other
I'll
voice.
make you a deal right now. I won't charge you a penny. I'll dialogue with you. It'd be my honor.
You'd be a great voice for the sales floor conversations. You know?
Every now and then. Did you hear that? He speaks the truth. Back to you, Michael. And away we go. All right. In sales, we all want to listen more. I feel like a broken record on that. Knowing it's one thing, doing it is another. You've written about this a little bit. How do you really listen in business and sales and in life? Give us some tips there, because I'm running out.
So like what I do, like it's typical advice is active listening, right? If you ask a lot of people who aren't in sales for like a definition, or even if you ask people in sales, they'll give you like a Webster dictionary type response. And if they're not in sales or they're young people, like it's generally like you'll get 100 different variations of it. So it's really hard to actually make active listening active besides the typical of repeating back what people are saying, asking questions and this kind of stuff. So like what I like to do, and what is a lot more fun to remind me, is instead of saying, hey, like be an active listener, like, which is not something most people say inside of their heads during conversations, is I like to come up with some kind of imagery or a metaphor for it. So growing up, I really got in my head, I thought I was a good listener. A speech therapist was like, your problem isn't talking, it's listening. You're so caught up in what you want to say and how you're going to say it that like you're actually worse than most people at it. And I was like, oh, that, like, it's like being told, like, and then like she went on to say, like, here's what you need to do. Like, you have to drop your agenda. We know this, that we need to drop our agenda, focus on the other person, except it's hard. So what I do is I like to remind myself that I'm a feather.
I'm sorry,
So
say that again. You're a what?
that I'm a feather.
A feather.
Like from a bird. So
Okay.
we carry not just our present and future worries, like we carry a lot into conversations, like money, kids, plus a bag full of past experiences that shape how we view people, how we act in conversations. Like if I got made fun of a lot, like I'm a little bit more skeptical of people. So by acting like a feather though, like it's not downplaying the importance of stress or family problems or an illness. Like it's just dropping it for 20 minutes or so you can focus on the person in front of you. Like it's a thing, if you like adopt the mindset of a feather, like it opens the door for you to be blown away by the people you meet. So you're just kind of clearing your element, right? So I remind myself, instead of being an active listener, it's just like, just be a feather, like drop it all, clear your head out, and just be open to what somebody else is saying. That is my go-to one, just because I get in my head a lot. So it's always just a reminder. Like if your cup is already full of your own worries, it's hard to receive other people's worries also, kind of thing.
Right.
So that's my first tip going into conversations. And then I heard something once from Harvard Business Review. It's to be a trampoline. So if you're a feather, plus you're like a little bit of a parrot that does summarize back what someone's saying just to prove you're listening. But a trampoline, like it's better than being a sponge, because a sponge just absorbs everything, right? But for conversation, you want to bounce stuff back. So if you listen, like you, a great podcast host, you're sharing your own stories and asking questions back. And in doing so, you're raising the energy of the conversation, sharing some about yourself. So we have more of a connection. So it's the bouncing dance, not just absorbing everything.
Yeah. Wow. It's interesting. I have my own visualization. I think of being at Starbucks and just having a cup of coffee with a human being. And would I just hammer them away with questions? No. But I learned this at Xerox. We actually created ratios. We tape ourselves. In a perfect world, we're looking for a 1-to-1 ratio of statements over questions.
Yeah.
Not 5-to-1 questions over statements, and not 5-to-1 the other. Most people go the other way, by the way. They're 10 and 15-to-1 statements over questions.
Yeah.
But to balance it out and just have a valuable conversation with a human being. But it's not easy. It's hard.
It is hard. And two, though, it's finding what works for you. My book is 12 principles that work for me. Like the point of the book is to encourage the reader to develop their own principles. But if you have something in your, like an image, like visuals are really important, and framing and serving as reminders. So if you have like a Starbucks, hey, this is just a Starbucks coffee with someone, that just release, like your shoulders drop a bit, your agenda drops a little bit, and you can make a connection with someone.
Makes sense. I'm not a feather or a trampoline. I'm a note taker.
I'm a note taker. That's half my book, I think.
Because my issue, which I've been able to solve, is I want to get at something. And I want to go deeper, and I want that second or third level question, but I'll keep repeating it in my head.
Yeah, yeah.
until I can get there. And if I can just I don't write the question. I usually need about 4 letters, something just to go, oh yeah, so that I can ignore the voice in my head and say, just stay locked in. There it is. It's
Just stay
there.
locked.
You'll
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I wish more salespeople would take notes. It's actually courteous to the customer as well because they feel valued when they see somebody taking
Oh,
notes
of
on what they're
course.
saying.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like that's my biggest thing, especially quiet and stuttering in the beginning. Like pencil and notepad is. I have a client who's very good at what he does, and he makes a living selling 70-year-old white men on the fact that the humans have emotions.
Mhm.
You know, like and he has this thing for interviews. If someone's not carrying a notebook and a pen, he's already they're way behind in his eyes.
Yeah.
It's just a thing to be a noticer, to observe, to write down what matters to people, what they value. And those little details at times too, the dog's name, just asking about Sparky on the second call. My manager, my first job, the first week he hounded me like, they have a dog. I love dogs. What's the dog's name? Are they married? What's his wife's name? You need to write this stuff down, Mike. And it is just those little details. Like they're not little details. The details are the thing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And the only way to get there is to take those notes. I actually I wrote an article once and I forgot even what it was called, but a notebook in their soul or something. But I was really reflecting on the salespeople of the 70s and the 80s before we really even had computers. I'm not playing old school. I love my computer and I love my iPhone and my technology. But back then, particularly in the insurance industry where I was coming from, they walked in with a pad of paper,
Yeah.
a rate book, and a pen, and it was a conversation they were about to have. And we lost a lot of great older salespeople when the computers came in because it was overwhelming. They didn't want to bury the client with 25 policy briefs. They
Yeah.
wanted to hear about Sparky and by the way, not just Sparky, but the children and things like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
because that was important to what they were the suggestions they were about to make.
Yeah.
But we lost that and we kind of got hidden behind computer screens a little bit.
Yeah. Manila folders,
Yeah. Yeah.
legal pads. You think that a lot of people handled the same amount of volume with a messy desk, like as you do today, like with a computer.
Yeah.
And they like legal. Maybe those relationships were actually tighter,
Yeah.
being a mess,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. Well, we lost some, we gained some, but I
Yeah.
still think about some of the people who trained me as a 21-year-old kid. And
Great
last story, and I'll
people.
move on. But I remember I was learning things like what restaurant to take the client to because they had paper placemats. And that's where we could do some of our note take, our figuring up of numbers, etc. Was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
all, he liked it because that's where you could just write on the placemat.
yeah,
And
yeah,
but that was a tip I was getting. And although it became slightly unethical tip, so I'm not naming names because he said, and what client is going to be taking a placemat with them after the end of the meal? So, we're in good shape there. All right. I never said that. Okay. You, in your book, you talk about choosing comfort over confidence, which really kind of made me pause. Can you dive into that a little bit and tell me what you mean by that?
we've kind of discussed it a little bit where it's
Mhm.
just finding like instead of going in to the office, a lot of us will walk in just trying to prove ourselves immediately, like and act like we belong there when internally we probably think, geez, I don't belong here yet. Yeah. My first manager, we had to do role plays the second day of my job, and I freaked out. And my manager saw me freak out, like, and he told the corporate trainer he was stealing me for the day, and he set me up in the corner with a stack of dead leads and some scripts, like, and was like, "Have at it, get as comfortable as you can." And I was like, "You're not going to sit with me." And it's like, if you're not comfortable, you're not going to want to come to work tomorrow. So he let me kind of figure things out on my own, like which I really appreciate. I'm not sure I would have stayed in sales if he hadn't done that. Like I was ready to leave. Like the idea of role plays just terrified me as a 23-year-old kid. year old kid.
Mhm.
So it's kind of finding your own, comfortable space, and then also flipping it to make other people comfortable.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I think we kind of overvalue confidence sometimes. Like we're all kind of confident in some things, we're not confident in other things, we're shy. Like you can have a guy who's great on Wall Street, like amazing on the phone. If he has to speak with someone that he's attracted to the opposite sex in a bar, he goes into a shell, or she goes into a shell. Like it's just one of those things where we have environments where we are more confident than we're not. And just the comfort. If you're comfortable in your environment and how you're doing things, the chance of thriving is a lot higher than if you focus that towards, hey, I want the people around me to feel the same way. It's not
Right.
like it's not catering to people. I think it's just kind of being a decent human being.
Well,
Like, and a lot of
absolutely.
people are intimidated. Like if you're a big person to like if you're tall, like and you have massive hands, like it can be intimidating for people. So it's kind of like how do you make yourself a little bit smaller at times? It's not just being bigger. Like sometimes it's meeting people in the middle. Um, yeah, and just kind of reading a room
Yeah.
and knowing that we all want to get along and have a good time together. So it's like,
Right.
what can you do to make that happen?
Right. It makes sense, Mike. When I'm teaching speakers, a lot of times we're really getting them to try and develop a level of comfort on the stage.
Yeah,
Because if the speaker's comfortable, the audience gets comfortable.
yeah,
If the speaker looks tight, the audience gets tight. And so the best way to actually relax an audience is you have to relax. Now, I can't yell at you and go, I said relax.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's certain techniques that we use, but the quicker we get there, the difference between a great speaker and a good speaker is whether they really feel it inside or not is irrelevant. They are
yeah,
projecting a sense of comfort,
yeah.
almost as if they're having a conversation in their living room. And man, Mike, if you can do that, the world is your oyster as a speaker. It just takes a little bit of practice. But
Yeah.
I don't want to undervalue what you just said. It's
No,
really
no,
important.
it's great. I wish I talked to you before I wrote the book, just because it's a really good analogy. It's like it's
Yeah.
a great thing to link to the
We'll
argument.
sneak that one in on the audiobook. Where
Yeah, yeah,
we got some, and one other thing that'll make you feel good. You're dealing with a 40-year sales trainer, 31 years on my own, and 9 with Xerox. And I will tell you that when I do workshops now, unless I'm there for 2 days, and usually not even in 2 days, I don't even I don't want to rip the heart out of that audience and humiliate them with a role play.
yeah,
It's tough. No one likes it. And now don't worry. We got to put something in its place because at some point we do have to practice this.
yeah,
But I really have moved and like case studies. And I imagine if you were in that program and I said, okay, you've learned all this information. You're really not going to be going step by step by step by step when you actually use it.
yeah,
So let's simulate really strategically how you're going to use it. Here's a case study. Look it over and shape the shot for me. Tell me the kind of questions you'd ask, the objections you might anticipate, how maybe, write me out an opening, but basically narrate how you're going to use it.
yeah,
Not only does that build confidence in not just you, but a lot of other people, but I got to tell you, from a teaching standpoint, they're getting more out of that way.
yeah.
Look, they're going to take that when I'm not around and there isn't a class staring at them, they're going to go through the pains of implementation, and that's another conversation. But why would I want to knock them in the nose
Subject them to
as I'm
something that
teaching?
maybe like half of them are going to fold and half of them are like, like you're going to knock some really good people out by
Exactly.
doing that. Like the strategic thinkers is a lot of the people who you want. So if you give them time to like, I need time to write, like and think.
Right.
So that's how I would thrive.
Right. And the
And it
world,
helps.
Mike, is not when you leave and learn something, be it sales or whatever you've learned. Out there, it ain't a role play.
Yeah,
Okay. It's actually more simulates a case study than a role play when you think about it. You have to think on your feet and strategically gather the things you need and don't need from what you've learned, it within process. So I feel I'm actually simulating something a little bit more real world
yeah,
than an actual role play with where we're being graded on there were 9 steps and you only got 8 of them.
yeah, yeah.
It doesn't work that way once we leave. So why not simulate it?
That's great too. And it's also the people who may overcompensate on their verbal ability.
Yeah.
you have to go in on the strategy side. So like
Yeah.
I have to raise my spoken word and my verbal communication skills. I have to improve that. But there's a
Yeah.
lot of extroverted who do like, oh, like they can get away with talking themselves out of a corner,
Yeah.
and they don't necessarily focus as much time on the strategy, the drawing up of docs, the planning of the pitching. So it actually helps like it's kind of a win-win for every type of personality
Yeah.
for me.
All right. All right. I don't want to keep you up all night. By the way, we
Sure.
normally finish about 5 minutes ago, but I am finding this conversation fascinating. I'm really want to tell you, you're really an interesting guy to listen to, and
Oh,
I'm grateful that you came on. I got one more question for you. I can't let you go because the trainer in me always wants to implement. I want somebody who's listening to this today to say, "Gee, those were some great ideas." But let's let them do, let's implement something. So give me an exercise or something that you could recommend that could build confidence um, with an individual who says, "Yeah, I'm on board. What could I practice to be more confident?"
there's two things, like, and one is fun and very effective, and one is more kind of actionable and effective. The first one is I keep a holy shit jar, and maybe I should say holy crap
No,
jar.
no, I don't curse because I'm a corporate trainer and it just doesn't come out me. Have a beer with me on the weekend. I'm all over the place, but you may curse all you want. Keep
All
going.
right. So I have a holy shit jar where essentially, like, anytime that I do something that makes me say to myself, holy shit, I did that, I write it down. Like this phone call, I'm going to have a holy shit plug for it, that, hey, I did that well today, I thought. So if it's publishing an article, like whatever it is, if it's doing something like not flipping out on my kids for using all the milk, so I don't have any for my coffee, whatever it is, big, small, I collect the moments that I'm proud of myself. And when I'm kind of feeling shaky, I'll review the past notes, like just 5 or 6 of them. It's kind of a reminder that I've already, it's like I'm still alive, so I've overcome a lot of things. And just reading through these things, like, hey, I did that. Hey, I did that. Like I got to go on a podcast. I have to give a talk. Like I have cards that have said I've done that 50 times. And instead, like it teaches you, instead of looking for outside validation, to validate yourself. And it kind of like the stories we tell ourselves, we can shape them, but we have to give them new inputs and review these inputs. So that's my first one. It's a fun one. Is like I have a jar on my desk here, and it's just like I dip it in a couple times a week. The second thing I got from a client named Jeanette Bronet, and she wrote a book called The Self-Care Mindset. And it's essentially acknowledge, accept, ask. So you acknowledge you're having certain emotions. Say that you have to give a presentation and you're scared of presentations. You acknowledge that you have these nerves and these feelings. Like the accept is just accepting what is. Like the presentation's coming. Like either you're quitting your job, like or you're going to have to do it. Like and accepting that your emotions are what make you human. It's like it's not a flaw. Yeah? And then asking yourself, what do I need so that I can dot dot dot. So maybe it's feel more confident. So what do I need so that I can feel more confident? Maybe it's calling a friend who's going to help you on your presentation. Maybe
Yeah.
it's reviewing just the strong parts so you get some momentum again. Maybe it's asking for help. And the older I get, like asking for help is like the bravest thing you can say. You know, it's not something that we don't have to do any of this stuff alone.
Right.
So it's kind of like when we're suffering or lacking confidence or fear, uncertainty, doubt, whatever it is, the world is full of like those are human emotions that everyone experiences. And the sooner that you get like a group of people around you who like you can call and say, hey, I'm struggling, the better. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my fast one is holy shit, I did that. My longer one is going through like, hey, it's like breathing, accepting that this is happening. What do I need so that I can take one small step forward in the right direction?
Yeah. How many times are you going to say that holy S word? Once I gave you the green light, it's like 19 times already. I got it. I have a cleaner way of doing it. I call it a journal, by the way. Mine is cleaner.
You got the physical right. Yeah, but the
Well,
cards
because
pulling
it
them
makes
out.
us methodically observant, and that's what you're doing. You're
Yeah,
actually slowing down and saying, I'm not going to leave this to chance. I'm going to be a little
exactly
bit
right.
more methodical. And
Methodical. I'm gonna
that's where
write
we
it
really really get and discover
Yeah.
things.
Like it becomes a ritual. Yeah. So,
All right, you and your jar. Look, how do people get a hold of you?
My website is michaelthompson.art because there's a lot of Michael Thompsons in the world. So it's art like artist. So michaelthompson.art. There's info on the book, my client work, articles, blog posts. And I'm on LinkedIn as Michael Thompson. I believe it's MikeThompsonBlog.com on LinkedIn. And I just joined, like I've been on Medium for years. And I've switched over just recently to Substack, and I'm loving it just because I want to have I want to have a podcast, I want to have video, and my publication on Substack is Shy by Design, also. So it's the name of the book. Just Google Shy by Design, and probably you'll find.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I hope people jump on that book. It is Shy by Design, 12 Timeless Principles to Quietly Stand Out. It's on Amazon, been out. It came out in July. Yeah. I think we ought to grab a copy of that. I'm going to grab a copy of that. I don't know if you know this, but I always tell the publicist, don't send me the book. I don't want it because when I like a book, I want to get it so I can give you a verified review on the book. Somebody hands you a book. That's a tip for you, by the way. Yeah. No giving out books to your friends, okay? Because your friends are the ones who are going to write reviews. Those are the easiest reviews, and I want it verified. So we'll give them something. We'll give them a cup of coffee instead. But think about that. Anyway, Michael, I really mean this. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and just so you know, I'm probably on the outside. People think that Jollis guy, is the poster child for extroverts. I have, just to your point, as you've been bringing it out, there are certain situations I'm very uncomfortable in. I don't advertise them because I'm not supposed to be uncomfortable. I'm supposed to be Jollis with the white glove and do the moonwalk. But we all have it. We all have a limp. Yeah. And you just did a great job of really kind of walking us through that. Grateful to have you.
This was amazing, Rob. I have a feeling that this won't be the last time we cross paths. So.
No, I'm looking forward to talking some more, and I'm going to take you up. Don't forget, we're going to do an audiobook together. Even if I just say welcome to the show, but I want in because that's going to be a good book. Anyway, grateful to have you on. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. All right, well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time. Although that's going to be difficult. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.